This is Shlomo Swidler, CEO of Orchestratus, on Wednesday, May 1st, 2014. Hello, welcome to the next episode of the OpenStack Israel podcast. This is Shlomo Swidler, your host, CEO of Orchestratus. On today's episode, I speak with Yaron Chaviv, Vice President of Data Center and Storage Solutions at Mellanox Technologies here in Israel. Hi, Yaron. Welcome to the show.
Hi. How are you?
I'm very good. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're responsible for within Mellanox?
So within Mellanox, we have the Data Center group, and we develop solutions for storage, cloud, OpenStack, OpenFlow, and databases, basically allowing those applications to run better on top of Mellanox infrastructure. So in the context of OpenStack, we develop plugins for Neutron, Nova, and Cinder, which allow you to run much faster storage and networking communication, where most of the heavy lifting is done in hardware. We also have other efforts in the area of big data and database and how to basically accelerate those. We have efforts in storage to enable new technologies of object storage, block, and file. One very well-known solution is Ceph, and we have RDMA support and acceleration for Ceph that is being developed in those days. So that's in general. And that includes also a lot of work with customers and end users that deploy clouds and storage solutions.
You oversee internal teams as well as interface with external customers.
Yeah, so it both work together because we go to big customers and partners. We understand their requirements, and we're trying to make their life easier by doing the integration that otherwise they would have to do between their solutions and their requirements and our hardware components and drivers.
You're in a very good position to know what kind of difficulties customers at large are experiencing with OpenStack. What can you share with us about that?
First, OpenStack is still not VMware. We have VMware customer. They go, they install, it runs. They have nice GUI. Everything is pretty robust. In the OpenStack, the first aspect that needs to be addressed is sort of the robustness, the ease of use. It still takes a lot of time to install and get predictable results. All those configuration files. And there are a bunch of automation tools that are being introduced. Mirantis have a solution called Fuel, and Red Hat is pushing the Red Hat OpenStack. But still, it takes quite a bit of time to create a full working solution and also manage it and understand exactly how it operates. A lot of tuning and best practices that needs to be learned on the fly.
Standing up and installing OpenStack is still very difficult.
If you really want, go beyond the POC and build a real production cloud with security aspects and high performance storage and all those things, not just sort of do-it-yourself POC, it is challenging. Even in the area of storage, you deploy things like Ceph, and the performance you get is very poor. And then you have to sort of go and understand which SSDs to use for the metadata and how to use the spindles and what's the best practice of how to deploy it. And this goes on and on for other components. You want to do high availability configuration. So what's the best practice for high availability? It's not packaged. You have to sort of figure by yourself what's the best way to do it. Use Linux high availability, all those, I forgot the names of all the acronyms of those high availability packages, but there are a lot of independent packages that have to be integrated together in order to form the full solution.
We've heard similar comments from other guests on the podcast as well. In your use of OpenStack internally, have you developed any kind of best practices or common solutions?
Yeah, so one very big initiative, very strategic initiative for Mellanox is something we call CloudX, where we sort of figure out how to try and make it simpler on both the hardware aspects and the software aspects. So first we're coming with sort of a reference architecture that we know is going to perform and provide predictable results with the right balance of enough disks and network resources and computation. and still is very cost effective. So typically we see a lot more bottlenecks around the data and the storage, so we're trying to put more balance on that front. On the software side, we're trying to integrate all the different components and provide scripts that work together with either Puppet or some other partner tools like Reddit or Mirantis or Ubuntu. And so basically you can go and bring up the entire solution quickly and also get predictable results, which is not less important. We also use one of the reasons we've developed it is because we have internal clouds for IT use, for internal IT application as well as for customers. And also we have development clouds that where we use to test all the plugins and the Cinder and Neutron aspects. So we have to go and create OpenStack deployments, and we have, if you include development labs and all that, we may have more than a dozen setups of OpenStack. If you look at more production setups, we have about 3 production clusters. So we have to be able to go and have tools that automate that. Especially if we create a new version, we have to basically tear everything down and go and build everything from scratch. And what we've done is basically now we open all those tools to partners and customers, and they could use it in its entirety or just go and copy things that we've done on specific aspects that you're missing.
A dozen OpenStack clouds internally.
Yes, that includes development clouds.
How many people do you have who commit to OpenStack code and are involved in the OpenStack community at large?
In general, in the company, we have about 20 people working on OpenStack. Specifically on directly touching the community, we have about 4 people where they work on code that belongs to OpenStack. And if we include also things like Puppet manifests and those things, we have more than 4 that touch open source code. And some of the work of the team is not just dealing with Mellanox stuff, because, for example, if we want to enable, to move the virtual switch into hardware, and that model is still not enabled by OpenStack, the first thing we have to do is basically create a new model in OpenStack for pushing network functionality into the hardware, which is a vendor-independent mechanism. So only after we sort of open the pipe to such new functionality and create the relevant blueprints and agree with partners such as Intel and Cisco on the right path, only then we could basically go and do let's call it the Mellanox specific implementation, which is done by other teams or in concert with other teams.
Yaron, you mentioned that there are several different ways that Mellanox helps customers with their data centers. Can you tell us a little bit about that so we understand the context for what Mellanox does?
Yeah, so we have many different customers touching OpenStack, different size. We have sort of mega customers, deploying tens of thousands of servers, and we have POCs with like 4 nodes in a cluster. So especially in the big customer space, what we do, we mainly enable the hardware and sort of the drivers and the enabling pieces to show them how they could basically get better performance to storage, to network, how to simplify their deployment. In some smaller accounts, we also even have professional services that go and sit with the customer and show him how to deploy OpenStack, regardless of the Mellanox stuff, and help him with the sizing, with what's the right configuration, etc. So it ranges from just being sort of an enabler in order to make sure they buy our products, to being sort of a full integrator. We had a big deal in Australia, for example, where the customer insisted that we basically do a turnkey solution. We basically take the entire ownership of everything. So we had to work with different partners to bring additional components, and we've basically were the integrator for the entire solution.
Why is OpenStack important to Mellanox?
So I think if I'm looking at the future, the 2 main growth areas are, one is related to data, big data and all those areas, analytics, Hadoop, etc. And the second is cloud. basically everything is going to run on cloud, whether it's Hadoop clusters, whether it's virtual desktops or any other types of workload, will eventually run on virtualized infrastructure, and virtualized infrastructure requires orchestration, and OpenStack is sort of the key and the leading framework for that. And so we believe that if we tie ourselves into the OpenStack layers in the cleanest way, and that will help our business. And also we find ourselves producing a lot of nice functionality in the different products that eventually customers don't know how to use. And by integrating the adapter and the switch and all the rest of the products into OpenStack, and basically enabling those capabilities of the hardware all the way up to the application layer, you can provide more value as well as generate much better differentiation and competitive advantage over your competition. So, I'll give you an example. In our adapters, we have overlay network offload engines. Okay, and there's no sane customer that will just go and use it, because you have to, in order to run things like VXLAN, you have to have like a network controller, you have to have integration with the Open vSwitch and all those things. If we want to step up and do all those integrations, it will certainly be yet another nice silicon feature. So what we do is basically enable all the layers. We go to the Linux community, to the kernel, we enable the offloading functionality. We go to Open vSwitch, we enable configuration of sort of hardware offload, and we go to OpenStack Neutron and modular layer 2 architecture, and we integrate with their sort of VXLAN or what they call L2 propagation model. And eventually we go and see that it all works. We test it in a complete scenario and show the benefit, which is about 5 times better performance, lower CPU overhead. And this really allows customers to take advantage of features that otherwise would be yet another features on your datasheet. But right now it really brings value. It's much faster, and it takes away a lot of your CPU overhead and latency on the network side. Yeah, same for storage and other things. If we have RDMA in our adapters, which is a way to deliver, move bytes very, very fast over the network. If we just keep it as that, when we go to customers and say, please use it, they're always busy. But if we take this and we tie this into Ceph, for example, which is really gaining on popularity, and we show that we can now deliver same amount of traffic with 5% of the CPU overhead, or deliver 10 times more transactions per second, it really brings value. And again, it moves from sort of another check item in the datasheet to something that really serves customers.
How did you decide that OpenStack was ready for Mellanox to pay serious attention to?
First, we were involved in OpenStack from its inception. Initially, we didn't have 20 guys. We had only 1 or 2 guys sort of scouting around.
How did you hear about it, and why did it merit getting people assigned to it?
So we were always involved in virtualization. We have teams working on VMware. We worked on KVM for a while, and we worked with Eucalyptus and all those frameworks. But the key challenge was that there was sort of no winner. You had like 20 different cloud stacks, Eucalyptus and OpenStack and CloudStack and all those acronyms. And we couldn't have invested in all of them. We sort of initially picked few of them, but like Eucalyptus, VMware Cloud Director, but I think then we started seeing from customers that OpenStack is gaining sort of a leadership position, and we saw more and more customers talking about it, asking us what about support and deploying it. And then we sort of started putting more resources. With that came more business that is directly related to OpenStack, and there we added more resources.
Yaron, do you plan to be at the upcoming OpenStack Israel event on June 2nd?
Yes, sure. I also submitted an abstract, as you know, and hope to present there as well.
What do you hope to share with the audience there?
I think working with the customers, we learn a lot of things about what is the best way to deploy, whether it relates to hardware configurations or right balance of resources. and sort of best practices. And also a second thing we're doing is a lot of advanced development for OpenStack. I mentioned improving the network virtualization layers, improving the storage. So the two things that I'll be sharing with the audience is first from our experience with end users, what is the best practice? How would I go and attack a problem? Let's assume I need to build a rack. What would be the best approach to address that and still minimize the overall cost? And not just relates to Mellon's gear, but in general, how do I choose the right storage? How do I choose the right servers? And then also, how do I manage it? And also, what are the new things that we're planning to eventually improve OpenStack even further? What are those things we work with the community in the areas of storage and networking?
What advice do you have for someone who's just starting out, thinking about looking at OpenStack, perhaps standing up a proof of concept cloud inside his organization? What advice would you give to someone just starting out?
So first, I think someone just starting out needs sort of a mentor to work with someone that have done that. It's very difficult task to just go and try and do it yourself. And if you are serious about it, you need to rethink the way that you're building your infrastructure. I know many people would go to their traditional Cisco EMC gear, high-end servers, etc. But then you would end up with the same sort of TCO model like you have today. I think the notion of cloud and the fact that you have a lot of components that each one could break and still the system would function would allow you to build things differently and eventually lower the cost. OpenStack also bundles a lot of functionality that sort of allows you to go and go for lower cost components or more primitive elements as part of your solution to eventually lower your TCO.
So you would advise people to think about data centers differently than they have already in the past.
Yes, because look at the guys in Amazon and Google and Facebook, etc. They're not building traditional data centers with storage area networks and all those things. They're building first totally different hardware structures. If you look at Facebook, open compute platforms, or some of the other initiatives in this space, they have sort of a combination of storage and compute in different ways, using a lot more commoditized solution for this. And they also have a lot of DevOps-oriented people to customize it to their exact needs.
Well, Yaron, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I look forward to seeing you at the OpenStack Israel event on June 2nd. And again, thank you.
Welcome.